want to talk a little bit about bone density. I did not know I had a bone density problem until January 6th or 7th. The doctor I consulted the doctor I consulted overseas to see if I could get a third generation artificial disc that had cushioning, insisted that I have a bone density test done. So my bone density test shows basically, if you see that little dot, if you graph it over, the blue is what they call like a normal range. I should be up in that normal range at the blue, but I basically have the bone density of like an 80-year-old. My T-score on my L1 vertebra is like negative 1.9. My L2 is negative 0.1, so it's not in the osteopenia range. L3 is 1.4 and L4 is 0.8. And then on my hips, I've got some that are like 0.4 and some that are 0.8, but I've got some areas where they're negative 1.6 in the osteopenia range. Same thing on the other hip. I've got a T-score, some are not bad, but then I've got spots that are negative 1.5. So it's like I've got some light spots in my hips and bones. So, a radiologist, the doctor's probably just going to get this report that's going to say, T-score lumbar spine, negative 1.2. They're going to say your hips, averaging like negative 0.8. So basically this one I have impression osteopenia of the lumbar spine. Why would a 46-year-old male have osteopenia? That's what I asked my doctor, and he basically says, well, we need to do some blood tests to figure that out. Kind of took what I call a shotgun approach, in which he ordered, a shotgun, you basically shoot at the target, and it's a big wide spread. You're going to hit the target. You're going to find it out. If you do enough tests, you're going to find something that might ring a bell or might lead to the answers. So I've got 3 pages of blood tests that were done. I had not met my deductible at this point. This cost $1,200 to get all these blood tests done. But anyway, out of all the things that were done and tested out of range, it's like, if I look at my vitamin D levels, I'm at a 31. The normal range is 30 to 100. I've been taking about 5,000 units of vitamin D a day. This is done in the middle of January, in the middle of winter, so I'm not out in the sun a lot. So I've upped my dose of vitamin D based on my lab results there. All my blood counts as far as my, protein tissues and, all the CBCs and lymphs and all that stuff came out fine. Only thing that was out of range is this gliadin peptide, ABIgG, and it's 20. So anything over 20 is a sign that I've got antibodies detected against gliadin. So what does that mean? I did some search on Googling and try to figure out what that gliadin results be. And it's basically, this is considered a low high, but it is a sign that I might have celiac disease. Celiac disease is a disease of the where there's a gluten sensitivity in the body, where your body can't process gluten right. It sees it as an enemy and develops antibodies against it. It can damage in the small intestine. There are little bitty fingers. I forget what they're actually called, but the little bitty fingers are what absorb nutrients from the food into the bloodstream. And with celiac disease, the little fingers get damaged and you don't absorb nutrients correctly. So even if you're eating a healthy diet, if you're consuming gluten, it messes up your little fingers in your small intestines, and you don't absorb all the nutrients you're consuming. A lot of it just passes right through you. So you don't get, you might be consuming a lot of calcium, but you're not absorbing it. You might be consuming vitamin D, but you're not absorbing it. all because of a gluten sensitivity that causing celiac disease. So it actually takes a small intestine biopsy to determine of the little fingers in the small intestine to see if you actually have celiac disease or not. I was trying to get that scheduled before I came here to Switzerland. Didn't have time to do it. But that's the reason I'm following a gluten-free diet right now. Other conditions, there's another person I've been chatting with on the forum. His name is Ralph. He had a bone density test done, and his doctor told him everything was fine. He, was following me on Facebook and the forums that I'm posting on and chatting on there, and the ADR support forums on that. And he, I was like, wow, his doctor said he was fine, but he dug his paperwork out and looked at it. He's got a T-score of like -3 on one of his vertebrae. He's got osteopenia. So we've been chatting about that. He's actually got a condition called Crohn's disease, which causes malabsorption. He's taken tons of vitamins and supplements trying to get his bone density up naturally. But anyway, the good news, what I found out now for him with Dr. Rische, is that even if you've got low bone density, you can still get an artificial disc replacement surgery. Dr. Rische says that if just because you have low bone density doesn't mean you're not a candidate for ADR. What he can do is, if he knows that situation, when he's got you opened up and he's in there doing the artificial disc replacement, at the same time, he can do the procedure they did on me was called a balloon kyphoplasty. But a regular kyphoplasty, they just inject bone cement into the vertebra to strengthen it. So if he knows you got osteopenia, when he's got you opened up, he can do it. He won't have to do 4 separate incisions in the back and inject it, go through the back muscles and do it the way I had to have my emergency revision done. But he can do that kyphoplasty at the same time as he's putting the disc in. So basically, he's got you cut open. He's down there to the vertebra. Let's say he's doing an L5 or L4, L5 disc. He could take, at the same time that he's putting that L4, L5 disc in, he could inject bone cement into L4 and strengthen that, and bone cement into L5 and strengthen that at the same time when he's already got you open up. So just because you have osteopenia does not mean you're not a candidate for ADR. It can be, you can still get an ADR in Europe with a kyphoplasty at the same time.